Good afternoon again. Thank you all for being here today. For those of you who don't know me, I am from Shenghu, the Richard G. Engelsman Dean of Arts and Sciences, and it is an honor to welcome you to the installation of Toby Pennington as the inaugural David and Dorothy Kemper Professor in Arts and Sciences. Before we proceed with formal introductions, I would like to personally welcome members of Toby's family who are both here and watching online. Present with us in the room is Toby's wife, Vanessa Plana. Vanessa, could you please stand to be recognized? Joining us online are Toby's sons, Lucas and Alex Pennington, Toby's parents, Terry and Hazel Pennington, his brother and sister-in-law, John and Sam Pennington, Toby's aunt, Sue Pennington, Vanessa's father, Luis Plana, Vanessa's mother, Erica Clifton, Vanessa's brother, Alexander Plana. Thank you all for joining us online, and good evening to all of you. I know they are tuning in from across the Atlantic. So let's give a warm round of applause to welcome these family members. We are also so honored to have David Kemper with us. David and Dorothy Kemper's generosity has made this endowed professorship possible. Several of their family members are going to be joining us for the dinner this evening in the Chancellor's house. And that will include their son, John Kemper, and daughter-in-law, Ashley Kemper. And David's sister, Julie Foyer, is also in the room today. So could David and Julie please stand up to be recognized? What an exciting time for life sciences in St. Louis. In just the recent few months, WashU, the Missouri Botanical Garden, the Danforth Plant Science Center, and other regional institutions have welcomed distinguished scholars and leaders, forged stronger partnerships, and reinforced St. Louis' status as a global force in life science research. And at WashU, our world-class biology department is experiencing remarkable growth as well, adding new faculty members who are world-class and stars, rock stars in their fields, and achieving record research funding, including an unprecedented number of prestigious NIH Mira Awards this year, with a total of 7 Mira Awards from NIH simultaneously in one single department. So congratulations to the biology department. Toby Pennington's arrival is a vital part of our commitment to establishing St. Louis as a plant science powerhouse. His joint appointment with WashU and the Missouri Botanical Garden is a significant milestone, and I'm so proud that he chose to join us from the University of Exeter and the Royal Botanical Garden, Edinburgh, in the UK. This is a pivotal moment for plant science in St. Louis, where our premier institutions, through collaboration, are uniquely positioned to make a substantial global impact. As a plant scientist myself, I find this moment just incredibly exciting. As many of you know, Toby's role is one of 2 joint appointments with WashU and the Missouri Botanical Garden this year. Last month, we had the pleasure of welcoming another esteemed plant scientist, Lucia Lohman, who is sitting somewhere in the room. Lucia, great to see you. And who is now president of the garden and the George Engelman Professor of Botany in our Department of Biology. The addition of both Toby and Lucia to our faculty is tremendously significant, and their impact on WashU, the garden, and St. Louis will be profound. One particular area where they're poised to make a significant difference is the Living Earth Collaborative, a research partnership unrivaled in the country and possibly the world. This ambitious initiative brings together WashU, the garden, and the zoo, leveraging the expertise and resources of these prestigious institutions to position our region as a global leader in biodiversity research, education, and conservation. This is just one exciting example of the dynamic growth in the life science community in St. Louis. And such achievements wouldn't be possible without visionary leaders and donors who foresaw the potential of this moment. Among them, David and Dorothy Kemper stand out. Chancellor Martin will speak further about their remarkable legacy in a few minutes, but I want to express my heartfelt thanks for their commitment to bringing the garden and WashU together to expand our collective impact. Their generosity enables us to attract world-class faculty who help make WashU an essential part of St. Louis's thriving ecosystem, and I deeply appreciate their continued partnership and support. I also want to take this moment to personally thank David, who has become an invaluable thought partner on many important matters. He's generous with his time and wisdom, and I always look forward to having our conversations. In fact, early in my tenure as Dean at WashU, during a casual lunch discussion about revitalizing the WashU Garden Alliance, I kind of mentioned that it would be so transformative to have a joint appointment between WashU and the garden. And David immediately saw the potential for both institutions. And thanks to his and Dorothy's generosity, we're here today celebrating that idea brought to life. And I would be remiss not to also acknowledge Chancellor Martin for his extraordinary vision, one grounded in academic distinction and in being in and for St. Louis. His encouragement has been instrumental as we have worked to strengthen collaborations with the garden and other regional institutions. With his strong endorsement, I was honored to serve on the search committee for the new garden president, and the committee selected our wonderful colleague, Lucia Lohman, who is sitting over there, and Lucia is also now the George Engelman Professor of Botany at WashU, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. The Chancellor's support also enabled the global search that led to the appointment of Toby Pennington as the Kemper Professor, whom we celebrate today. In short, I'm deeply grateful to the Kempers and the Chancellor for their exceptional dedication to the exponential impact our institutions can achieve together. And with that, I would now like to invite the Chancellor up to the stage to share more about David and Dorothy Kemper and their lasting impact in the St. Louis ecosystem. Thank you so much.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy that we can gather together today to celebrate our new colleague and also to celebrate a gift that bridges two of St. Louis's most treasured institutions and strengthens a partnership that has flourished for nearly 140 years. David Kemper has been a champion of Washington University for more than 3 decades. Since joining our Board of Trustees in 1987 and serving for a period as board chair, David has provided visionary leadership that has helped shape this university's trajectory. As executive chairman of Commerce Bankshares and Commerce Bank, he brings his business expertise to his service. But what really sets his leadership apart is his personal commitment to the institutions that define St. Louis. As David himself has said, quote, "I believe WashU and the Missouri Botanical Garden are two of the most important institutions in St. Louis. I'm grateful to be involved with them after so many years. And the word involved is an understatement, as he has served both the university and the garden as a board member and board chair. Through this service, he understands that their missions are profoundly interconnected. David and Dottie Kemper have transformed WashU through their generosity. Their $5 million gift in 2004 created the Mildred Lane Kemper Art Museum, honoring David's mother and giving our campus one of its most distinctive and beautiful landmarks. They've continued to support the Sam Fox School, endowed the William T. Kemper Directorship, created the James M. Kemper Gallery, and made gifts across the university from our libraries to our School of Medicine and beyond. In 2022, WashU chose David and Dottie as our Robert S. Brooking Award honorees, recognizing their extraordinary dedication. The following year, the Kemper family was honored with the Dean's Medal from the Sam Fox School. And now, with their $2 million gift to endow the David and Dorothy Kemper Professorship, they are enhancing their already impressive legacy of giving at WashU. In Professor Pennington and in future holders of the Kemper Professorship, David and Dottie have gifted us with world-renowned scholars who will tackle urgent challenges while strengthening the historic bond between WashU and the Missouri Botanical Garden. David, I'm so grateful for all that you've done, not only for this university, but for the St. Louis community and beyond. Your generosity is deeply appreciated, and we're grateful for all that you've done. I'd now like to invite you up to the podium so I can present you with the shadow box. David, it's my honor to present this shadow box to you in recognition of this professorship. The medallion reads, the David and Dorothy Kemper Professor in Arts and Sciences. In grateful appreciation, presented to David and Dorothy Kemper, November 19th, 2025. David, thank you so much for this commitment.
Thank you.
Shall we go over and get a little picture? And now I would like to invite my colleague Ram Dixit to come to the podium and do a formal introduction of Professor Pennington. Ram.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ram Dixit. I'm a professor and chair of the biology department. I want to welcome everyone to this wonderful event, those of you in the room as well as those of you joining us online. I'm truly honored today to introduce Dr. Toby Pennington as we celebrate his installation as the inaugural David and Dorothy Kemper Professor of Biology. As Dean Hu and Chancellor Martin have already noted, Toby holds a joint appointment with the Missouri Botanical Garden, a role that is exciting and is going to strengthen partnership between both institutions, as we have heard. Simply put, Toby is one of the world's leading tropical botanists. That's really all you need to know about him. So what I'm going to do now is tell you why that is the case. This is a little bit of history. He received his undergraduate and graduate degrees from Oxford, after which he served as research assistant to the director of the Royal Botanical Gardens at Kew near London. He then moved to the other, I believe that's the only, there's two, correct? Yeah, the other Royal Botanical Gardens in Edinburgh, where he was the head of the Tropical Diversity section for 17 years. Now, during this time, Toby realized he missed teaching far too much. And so he actively took up a 70% position at Exeter University while still retaining a 30% position at the Royal Botanical Gardens at Edinburgh, where he was able to, and at Exeter, he was able to enjoy his passion for teaching. And students clearly loved Toby as a teacher because he received multiple student-nominated teaching awards in categories such as pastoral support, my favorite category, best personal tutor, and for outstanding performance. And now what's wonderful is Toby is bringing this rich experience with the university garden joint positions to the David and Dorothy Kemper Professorship. From a research perspective, Toby has a remarkably broad range of interests spanning the fields of systematics, phylogenetics, evolutionary biology, biogeography, paleoecology, conservation biology, and restoration ecology. And if that does not impress you, what's even more amazing is that his work has made important advances in each of these areas, which together, I'd say synergistically, have led to new paradigms for how interactions between different organisms and between organisms and environmental factors have worked to shape the incredible diversity of species that we see in the tropics. Indeed, Toby's research focuses primarily on the tropics, especially in Latin America, where he has worked across 10 countries. And what's really notable and interesting about his work is his focus on seasonally dry forests rather than the tropical rainforests that we are probably more familiar with. He has made enormous contributions in this area, including establishing in 2013 the Latin American Seasonally Dry Tropical Forest Floristic Network, or DryFlor for short. DryFlor created the first ever comprehensive data set of plant species in these dry tropical biomes, and you're going to hear a lot more about this work from Toby, including how these efforts have been instrumental in long-term monitoring and conservation efforts. Much of Toby's taxonomic and biogeographic research has focused on legumes, which are the third largest family of flowering plants with about 19,500 or so species. Legumes are widely distributed and are enormously important because of their ability to fix nitrogen, making them highly valuable for both human nutrition as well as soil remediation in terms of ways to naturally enhance nitrogen in the soil. Toby has led global efforts to develop a comprehensive phylogeny of legumes, advanced our understanding of the distinct patterns of their biogeography and diversification, and then used this knowledge to select specific legume species that were well suited for applications such as agroforestry, sustainable food production, and ecosystem restoration. And by deliberately considering the livelihoods of local populations in these areas, Toby has greatly enhanced the success and the impact of his conservation and restoration efforts. Toby's research has been supported by many big grants from the Natural Environment Research Council, and other European systems that have brought in more than 20 million pounds since 2016. In addition to his prodigious research output of over 200 papers to date, many in top journals, Toby has supervised 48 PhD students, 29 master's students, and scores of undergraduate research projects to date. I want to call particular attention to his commitment to training and building research capacity in the Latin American countries where he works in. So in this way, Toby is impacting both research and education globally, right? So which is noteworthy. Toby has received many awards and honors in recognition of his outstanding work. I will just mention a few here: the Bicentenary Medal from the Linnean Society of London, the Stubbins Award from the International Association for Plant Taxonomy. He was also the first Royal Botanical Garden scientist to receive the Individual Merit Promotion Level 2 from the UK Research Council. He has served on editorial boards of several top journals and is currently the president-elect of the International Biogeography Society. On a personal note, Toby, I am so thrilled to have you as a member of the biology department. I know from the many, many interactions while we were recruiting you and since you've joined the department that you're going to be a fantastic colleague. a great teacher and very generous mentor. I look forward to your continued success at WashU and in the biology department. And now I would like to invite Chancellor Martin on the stage for the installation and presentation of medallion.
Toby, on behalf of our colleagues who are here and those who are joining us virtually, and colleagues from two institutions, Washington University and the Missouri Botanical Garden, we are so grateful that you have joined us here in St. Louis and will continue your important scholarly work as we bring these two great institutions closer together. And so in honor of your appointment, it's my honor to give you this medallion. On the obverse, it reads, "The David and Dorothy Kemper Professor in Arts and Sciences." And on the reverse, it reads, "Toby Pennington, November 19th, 2025. Toby, congratulations. Congratulations. Let's come right over here real quick.
Well, it's a bit hard to follow all that. Thanks very much, Chancellor Martin, Dean Hu, Dr. Dixit, for those very kind words. I have to say they actually reflect the incredibly warm welcome that Vanessa and I have had since we've got to St. Louis. And actually, I don't just mean from WashU and the Botanical Garden. Thanks you all for coming. I mean the St. Louis community in general. It's just been amazing. Everything from like the helpful staff at Commerce Bank opening a bank account, even to the Missouri State Highway Patrol, who passed a guy who drives on the wrong side of the road his driving exam last week. So what I'm going to do today, to get the slides up, is I'm going to talk to you about why I feel optimistic in the face of the environmental crises that we're all facing. And on the way, through about 20 minutes, I'm going to try and explain a little bit about myself, but particularly about the work that I'm very excited to do here at WashU and the Botanical Garden with the incredibly generous support of David and Dorothy Kemper in this amazing new professorship. Thank you very much. So, this is a talk about biodiversity. So what does that word mean? So about 20 years ago at the Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh, the head of advancement there said to me in a meeting that he didn't want to use biodiversity in any of the campaign materials because he thought that most of the public thought it was a washing powder. But I guess laundry detergent is what you would say around here. So I maybe wouldn't go that far. I think that people kind of know what biodiversity is, but if you want to define it properly, a definition that I quite like is that it's biological diversity with the logical bit taken out of it, which is kind of a bad joke. But it's actually, I like to say that because it's such a broad term that I think a lot of people don't know actually what its kind of official definition is. And it includes everything from the diversity within species, so genetic diversity, the diversity of species, species diversity, and the diversity of habitats. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the diversity of species and the diversity, in the second part of the talk, the diversity of ecosystems. So, as you can see here, it's a word that has got a kind of official United Nations definition, kind of odd really for a bit of vocabulary. It's a slightly ugly compound noun that I think if William Shakespeare was alive today, I doubt he'd be deploying it in his plays. So this is a quote that I used regularly in teaching to introduce courses at the Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh. The point I was trying to make to students was about connection to nature. And the first part, I think, about being optimistic about the environmental crisis we face today comes from that connection. And I think that that connection is more likely to come from art and literature and music than it is necessarily from science. So I'm actually very excited to be, for the first time in my career, in a faculty of arts and sciences with colleagues who can help us do that, because I think it's incredibly important. But the point about this prose, it's not just incredibly beautiful. Those be rubies, fairy favours. What Shakespeare's pointing out there are those red marks in this British wildflower, the cowslip. Those are the honey guides that pollinating insects use to locate themselves on that flower so they can find nectar and get pollen and pollinate. That's incredible. It's the observation of a pollination ecologist, not of a playwright. That's how closely Shakespeare was connected to his natural environment. But the simple point I'm trying to make to students is Shakespeare knew what a cowslip was, so he could write about it. I think that connection is missing in a lot of popular modern culture and music, and we need to get it back. So identifying species diversity is important. And if you look carefully in your local environment last month or so, you might have seen me and Vanessa looking kind of stressed in Forest Park or on the campus, because we like to identify stuff, birds and plants. In the UK, we've only got about 40 tree species. In the US, where everything is bigger and better, you've got 900. But even the US can't compare to these tropical countries where I've done most of my research, where the species diversity is an order of magnitude higher. And I like there to use the metaphor of deciphering the wall of green. In that photo, you can literally see a wall of green. There are very few people in the world that have the skills to identify that diversity. Geraldo Cavalcanti de Lima, great friend and mentor of mine since my PhD from Rio Botanical Gardens, one of those people. My dad, Terry, who's a botanist who's online, is another one of those people. I don't have those skills. And there, you won't be surprised to hear, maybe there are some people in the room here from the Missouri Botanical Garden who also have this unique skill set. But I'm guessing there are some of you in the audience who might be thinking, well, maybe new technologies can fix all this. And those new technologies have got masses to offer, but I want to tell you a little story now from sort of unpublished research, which suggests that that may not be the case, and reasons why not. And I'm going to start here, not in Illinois. That is southern Amazonia, another area of massive soy cultivation. This is an area where, over the past 50 years, a large area of Amazonian rainforest has been deforested, first for cattle farming, now for soy. But there are other organizations there, like this amazing non-profit I work with, the Instituto Ouro Verde, for those who aren't Portuguese speakers, the Institute of Green Gold. And they are employing regenerative tree-based agriculture with some really vulnerable communities there who get small lots of abandoned farmland. And there they grow trees, and underneath those trees they grow crops in agroforests, you can see there to your left, or they graze cattle underneath trees in silvo pastures. And the reason I got involved in all this, which Ram alluded to, is because the legume that I've used as an evolutionary model to try and understand why the tropics are so species rich is used in these systems. So it's something that you will never have heard of, or most of you, called Inga. Any of you who drank a coffee from Latin America this morning, it would almost certainly have grown underneath the shade of an Inga tree. Because this is one of these legumes that fixes nitrogen, so it helps the coffee crop, and it also produces edible fruits and other benefits. But interestingly, in a group there, a genus of 300 species, only 2 to 3 species are used widely in cultivation. So I got a grant from UK research councils to see if other species might be useful in increasingly challenging climates in the southern Amazon. So I say we, what this guy Saulo Souza did was plant a huge-scale experiment there with 7 Inga species, including one called Inga edulis, that's one of those widely cultivated ones. And what he did is, over 3 years, right through the pandemic, he followed how they grew and survived in increasingly severe summer droughts in these areas. And what was really interesting was Inga edulis didn't win that competition. The species that won it was one that we were calling Inga huberi. And I use the quotes, so it's a bit like me and Vanessa in Forest Park. It's like, which oak is that? Looks kind of like that, but not quite right. It didn't look quite like Inga huberi. We thought it might be another species called Inga acreana. So these days, what we can do is we can go and sequence literally millions of base pairs of DNA through high-throughput sequencing. And we can construct an evolutionary tree for those Inga species. So this is all unpublished work. Rowan and Rosalia, amazing postdocs doing it. And what we found was our species from that trial is nowhere near in terms of its relationships with Inga acreana or Inga huberi. It doesn't look anything like its closest relatives. It's actually a new species, as yet undescribed to science. So one of our biggest hopes for agriculture in the Amazon arc of deforestation doesn't even have a name. And this is my point coming back to AI. There's no point feeding the algorithms information if we don't know how to label those specimens. So the question is wrong. The question that we need to be answering is how can these amazing techniques of AI and high-throughput DNA sequencing help us complete the global species inventory? That's the kind of research that I want to be doing with WashU and the Missouri Botanical Garden. And just to give you an idea of the scale of the problem, it's very interesting. This morning I was reading the Financial Times newspaper online, and there was an item about big US university that will go unnamed that's having a program to tackle big unsolved scientific problems, the big enigmas, the big challenges. The usual suspects are on that list, like the origin of life. What always amazes me, as a botanist, is why on that list is in the 21st century we don't have a list of species on our planet. Why, for the plants that feed us and clothe us and provide most of our medicines, are we not certain whether there's 250,000 of those species or nearly 500,000 of those species? That's the truth of the situation. So this is a slide I use in teaching. I'd like to break you up for a class discussion. Why do you think? You don't know, but I don't have time, and I'm going to take you to the answer. So there's a lot of rich guys out there at the moment who are wanting to go and explore other planets. Like, they're welcome, but I'd quite like to stay here and explore our own one. So I've emphasized new species, and us botanists do that a lot, but actually, do you know what? That's kind of missing the point. Because every time someone does a taxonomic revision, which is the bread and butter research for people at the Missouri Botanical Garden and other botanical gardens worldwide, it's a revolution. Those new species are the tip of the iceberg. So these are numbers from my own PhD of 100 species in this tropical tree legume genus that have been described. Only 29 of them are actually distinct. And you know why that is? It's not because the taxonomists that went before were bad scientists. It's because so much new data has accumulated. The 7 million specimens that have been added to the Missouri Botanical Garden collections under the leadership of Peter Raven and Peter Wise-Jackson before Lucia became president. And we've got new data, like this DNA sequencing, that gives us a new vision. And so again, back to AI, there's no point feeding the algorithms with training data about species that are illusions. It's not going to help. What we need to be doing is harnessing these technologies to complete this global inventory of plant and other species. So that's the first bit of talk about species diversity. So now I want to talk a bit about habitat diversity. So again, this is a slide I use a lot in teaching, and it might look like something from Gulliver's Travels, but this actually is from the first serious scientific compilation of the flora of Brazil. And what von Martius, the author, was trying to do was, in the age before even photographs, was express the wonder he saw in these massive tropical rainforests. And that created a problem that's continued to this day that Ram alluded to. And that's half of the tropics is too dry to support those rainforests. And it's covered by grass-rich open savannas or these tropical dry forests that are deciduous and full of these amazing succulent plants like cacti. And I've spent a lot of the last 20 years trying to answer this question, is the species diversity in these tropical dry biomes, can it rival the species diversity that everyone talks about in tropical rainforests? And again, this is a huge problem that it's incredible we haven't got an answer for in the 21st century. Because what's happened is most efforts to document floras are confined to countries, but these biomes are global. And the second problem is species distributions. They don't respect national boundaries. So actually, I can't give you an answer to how many plant species there are in the savannas of the world, which, if you're wanting to make a conservation decision, is kind of fundamental. So to try and address this, I'm going to go to a country that's continent-sized, like the United States, to Brazil. We've got some Brazilians here. And an amazing group of Brazilian botanists and international botanists, I'm a part, where Lucia Lohman was a leading light in putting it together, the Brazil Flora Group, has just counted the number of described species in the Brazil's portion of the Amazon, which is most of the Amazon rainforest. And there's an amazing nearly 12,000 species there. But if I take you to the savannas of central Brazil, called the Cerrados in Portuguese, that I'm guessing a lot of people here have never heard of, I think a lot of you will be surprised to find out there are more plant species there than there are in the Amazon. Who knew? In the week where the COP climate conference is going on in the Amazon and all we're hearing is Amazon, 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 have you heard the word Cerrado once? Probably not. But these tropical dry forests, the ones I'm most excited about that were perhaps least known, they were a big challenge because, sorry, it's very tiny. That map there in the top corner, you can see they're in scattered small green blobs all the way from Mexico down through Latin America to Argentina. So I thought the only way we can address this is to get a group of people together who are working on the floors of these forests to work together. So this network, Dry Floors, done some amazing things. And just to illustrate, it's done some amazing things in scientific outreach. So I guess I'm looking at quite a lot of people in the audience who, like Vanessa and I, have got kids. If your kids are sort of younger or teenagers, it's quite hard being an academic parent, right? Because you're there trying to persuade your children what you do is cool. It's like, hey, Dad, what did you do at work today? Well, I've got a paper accepted in molecular ecology. You know, like, well, whatever. But Lucas, our youngest, who's 21, I hope he's listening online. He was 21 on Monday, in fact. When he was in his mid-teens, I think he told me that 100,000 YouTube views, which we got for this video, is respectable in terms of social media output. But going back to the science, it was incredibly simple. What we did was we looked at surveys from 1,600 sites across all these countries, surveys areas of just about a hectare, and what we documented were more than 7,000 species of just woody plants. So that number from the Amazon was all plants. So you can see that this is a really big headline number, which is why we got onto the front cover of Science, which was fantastic for the network and all Latin American partners. But if we're thinking about conservation, thinking about how much is left is really important. And again, I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there. So this was a photograph I took out of a light aircraft window during my PhD. That's Guyana, the northern part of the Amazon. I could guarantee you, if you overflew that today, it would look identical. And that's because, despite the fact I emphasized Amazonia's arc as deforestation, it's 80% still left. World's last great wilderness. Let's keep it that way. The Cerrado savannas of central Brazil, this was a picture taken in the 1970s by my great friend and mentor, first boss, Jimmy Ratter, at the Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh. That has been going on right through my lifetime. Now, there is actually a lot less than 50% of those 2 million square kilometres of savannas left, and the rest is badly degraded. But those tropical dry forests are actually they're amazing, but they're doing worst of all. And actually, interestingly, that is because they grow on fertile soils. And a lot of the conversion happened in pre-Columbian times, people with stone axes. You add that to conversion today, and there's less cover of those forests than there is of woodland in the United Kingdom in many cases, like 5% in Colombia. And that matters. Because again, with everyone, particularly this week, focusing on Amazonia, Brazil, these are numbers for Brazil, does very well in protecting its Amazon rainforest. 30% of Amazonia is protected by national parks or indigenous reserves. But you compare that to Brazil's Caatinga dry forest in the northeast of the country, the biggest area of tropical dry forest in the world, only 1% is protected in national parks. And the same goes for those Cerrado savannas. So just as a pause before I come to sort of concluding things, again, this is something I use in teaching quite a lot. What was the first thing you saw when I put up that slide? Who saw the big, impressive hawk moth? See a show of hands. Who saw a big, impressive tropical legume tree? So I've got a slightly biased audience here, so people from the Botanic Garden, but you get the point. And this is the phenomenon of kind of plant blindness, the fact that we don't see this green part of our planet that's driving all these cycles of carbon and energy. So in thinking that we've got an analogy of people only seeing certain biomes, I was wanting to come up with a term to describe that, and couldn't come up with one word. So someone said to me, you need to start thinking about acronyms. And just as an aside here, so I've just started at WashU, and it's kind of tough. You go into meetings and it's DBS and it's EB, and I'm thinking, like, Google Translate doesn't do this. Where's the glossary, you know? I'm, like, lost. So, but, you know, Chancellor Martin Dean Hu, you can stay relaxed, because if you want to get to the upper echelons of acronym use in higher education, and I know we're being told times are tough at the moment. We're being told how to run our higher education. If I was the big boss, I would abolish acronyms for this reason. This came through my email box a few months ago from a UK university that will go unnamed. If anyone wishes to apply for that position, or they can understand what the position is, I'll have a chat with you over the drinks afterwards. Anyway, to move on, I was involved in coming up with an acronym. And it's an acronym that I think is quite good, and it's an acronym that's quite good precisely because it's bad. Biome awareness disparity. And we published this in a paper where we looked at output on social media from a whole group of organizations that are involved in the United Nations Decade for Ecosystem Restoration that's still going on. So a lot of serious players in conservation, they're putting out 10 times more material about tropical rainforests than those open biomes. And that really matters. So to return to Brazil's Cerrado, it really matters for these reasons. This is an article from The Economist about 10 years ago. So I won't read it all to you, but what it's saying is, isn't it great that we can save the Amazon by ploughing up these worthless plains in central Brazil? Neatly ignoring, and it was known then, that those plains have as many plant species as the Amazon. And fast forward to just a few years ago, the European Union proposing new laws on removing land conversion from food supply chains, but explicitly excluding those savannas. We've still got work to do to raise the profile of these systems. And that is incredibly important, because the plants that grow in them are already adapted to hot, dry climates, to fires, to future environmental conditions. And that gives you half of the answer to this question. It's another one I set for students, is, does all that species diversity really matter? And this isn't my science. There are a lot of experiments that show conclusively that it does matter. So this is North American prairie, where someone has planted different blocks with different numbers of species in. And the species diversity definitely increases biomass productivity, but critically it increases resilience. So ecologists talk about functional redundancy here, which is an odd term. I prefer to think about flexibility. What's going on is you've got a species with deep roots. It's going to be able to survive a drought if it comes. So if you have those in the mix, you're going to have a more resilient system. And back to our plant diversity. With 400,000 species, we've got a lot of flexibility. So the analogy I like to use here comes from sports. So I'm a soccer fan, used to play a lot of soccer. My team is a team called Manchester City, who used to be useless but have been sweeping all before them. And the reason they do that is they've got the best coach in the world, a guy called Pep Guardiola, who actually uses this principle of functional flexibility, even though he doesn't know he uses it. Because what happens is, when they are losing a game at half-time, he looks at his replacements bench, his substitutes bench, and he brings on a player that offers something different. And that player scores, and you've got a resilient team that wins. And we're in exactly the same situation. If we can describe those 400,000 plant species properly, we can understand where they grow, we can conserve all the biomes that they contain, we'll be in a really good place. And that's the kind of research program that I'd like to be taking forward with WashU, the Missouri Botanical Garden, and the community here in St. Louis. Thanks very much.
We're not taking any questions. So thank you, Toby, for the fascinating presentation, information-rich, visually attractive, and socio-economically profound. Toby, we do have some wonderful pre-med students at WashU. Lots of them, like 40% of our students are pre-med, so you can work with them to cure plant blindness. We'll all help you in biology. How about that? We can also connect you with some medical doctors in the wonderful medical school. So thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you again to David and Dorothy for your generosity. And thank you all for joining us today. This concludes the formal portion of today's ceremony. Please join us back there for the reception. Thank you so much.